Hey, I'm Cable. Welcome to How to Open a Fitness Studio Part 2. Today we're going to get into the nitty-gritty and talk about expenses. So at this point, I've assumed you've kind of looked around at some different spaces. You've got an idea of kind of what your business would look like. You're not yet negotiating a lease. We need to start thinking realistically about how much is this business going to cost us to open and how much is it going to cost us to run. So it might seem like I work a little bit backwards here, but I think as you progress through this, you'll follow my logic and you'll see the importance of this. If you like the information I'm about to share, I have some resources that I'm happy to share with you. I'll post a link to below as to how you can get those resources. So the first thing is, by now you've probably kind of decided like what kind of space you're looking for. How much does space in your facility cost? If you watched the first part or first video, and we can start to kind of picture or envision what will it cost to run that space. So for sake of example, let's say that we are shopping for around a 3,000 square foot space, which kind of fits within the bubble of my favorite size. I think is very practical and realistic for most people. Now the next thing is we want to start to think about what kind of expenses will be associated with running this space, and don't overthink this. As trainers, I find we're really analytical and detail oriented, so we become really absorbed and freaked out about getting this right. But this isn't about getting it right, okay? It's just about finding a starting place, so a guess is good enough. But what I will advise you is guess pessimistically, okay? Because when we're starting a business, the number one thing that I've learned over the years through starting my businesses and coaching others to do the same is that the biggest disaster in a business is to run out of cash before you're successful. So in this case, we want to be pessimistic. We want to plan for the worst and prepare for the best, okay? So if we think worst case scenario, we're in a better place to survive until we're successful. So this first step is to assign a dollar value, just a guess, to any of the expenses you think you might incur. Let me give you a list of some things to think about. So you should be able to get a rough idea of what the total lease will cost per month. And you can add in there, depending on where you're at, it might be CAM, it might be triple net, or there's usually some other fees over the base rent that take care of taxes and all of those other things. So utilities, okay, what's needed in terms of electricity, utilities, okay, electricity, gas, water, garbage, check out those kind of things, ask around, ask some people, assign a dollar value to that. You might need a telephone or some kind of phone service, even if that is a cell phone. You these days might need a separate texting platform. We might need, well, not might, we're going to need supplies, okay? This will be things like everything from paper and office supplies to toiletries, for the bathrooms and things like that. So anything that you're going to need for supplies. One of my first facilities, we made the mistake of offering a towel service. So we needed to factor in that in terms of the towels and materials to keep them clean and the manpower and stuff to take care of it and so on. What else are you going to need? Obviously marketing, okay, which right now this will really be a guess and we can narrow this one in later. How much do you think is realistic, or do you want to spend on advertising or finding new customers each month? What else have we got? We've got utilities, we've got phone. Good to allocate something for taxes, perhaps. Yeah, it's kind of important. I think just as a general rule, when we make money, we're going to have to pay something somewhere sooner or later. So even allocating something like 5% to taxes of your total revenue would be probably helpful to keep you out of trouble later. What else am I missing? So payroll is going to be a big one. We're going to talk about payroll here in just a minute. So how to figure this one out. What's this going to cost us each month? What else am I missing? Lease, utilities, telephone. Really, I think that's mostly about it. But if there's anything else that you can think of, like what might you spend money on? It doesn't matter if this list is accurate or not right now. We just want to get a framework of what it could cost. So for example, if we give these some numbers, let's just say that our lease is roughly $3,000. Let's say utilities around $500. Phone around $100. Texting platform, I think these days probably $150 is somewhere there. Same supplies, realistic number, I would say probably $800 might be on the low side. Marketing, let's leave that one out for now because we're going to talk about this more. Maybe we'll add it in here just for the sake of room on my board. A couple $1,000s. Taxes, let's say 5% of 10,000, so we'll call that $500 maybe. And then payroll we'll definitely come back to. So if we add these things up, we've got 3,500, 36, 3,750, 3,950, for roughly 40, so 4,450, and then this 800 needs to fit in there, so that's around 5,250, I believe. So I'm going to erase these, and we'll record 5,250 up here on expenses. and I'll skip over to the next section and we'll keep filling this in for you and talk about how to do it. So I'll be right back. Okay, so here we go. We just talked about expenses. We got kind of a number to work with for now, say $52.50 for your basic operating expenses just to keep the lights on and the building open. But we haven't paid anybody yet, so we need to figure out what is payroll going to cost us each month. Now, usually when we negotiate a lease and prepare for this, we'll get a period where we have free rent or reduced rent and stuff that will greatly lower these expenses, which is exactly why I plan it out this way. I want us to project and plan as this place was fully operational today, fully staffed. What is it going to cost us at that point? Because you'll see later how this will actually assist us in negotiating our lease and planning that opening stage of our business. So how do we figure out payroll? Well, we just make a mock schedule. So if your place was busy, what hours do you want it to be open, and what is that going to cost you to run? So let's just set up some days here for the sake of example. So we've got Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and I'm going to just use Saturday, Sunday. If you're like me, we had our business closed. I just think that everybody should have one day off per week, whether you're religious or not. Sunday seemed like a good day to do that. So in our industry, I think globally, we can probably agree that the busiest times of day are typically early morning. Depending on the city you're in, this is going to be roughly 5:30 or 6 a.m. opening, and probably after 8 or 8:30, you're going to die. So for easy numbers, let's call it 8 a.m. Now, lots of opportunity to get mid-morning and so on and so forth, but let's just, for the sake of example, we'll use something easy. So we'll use 6 to 8 a.m. as kind of our morning block. We also know that universally probably 4 to 7 p.m. is definitely the busiest time. So we've got 2 hours here and 3 hours here that are going to be really busy. So let's just start with that. And that if each day of the week we were open those 5 hours in particular, and actually we'll add to this just to make it a bit more interesting example for you. Saturday we had shorter hours. You can model the same. I find if you can get people in before noon on Saturday, they don't feel like they're giving up their whole weekend and they're more likely to attend. So typical for us was 3 to 4 hours on Saturday. Let's add another block in here. Let's say that you think that 12 to 2 is going to be another time block that will easily be able to fill. So now we got another 2 hours Monday through Friday that we can add up. So we know that we need to have a training crew for all of these hours, okay? So we can kind of get an estimation of what our training payroll looks like. Now, you might be included in this schedule, but I want you to think about putting yourself on payroll. Too often I see owners opening and running a business and they don't even actually pay themselves, and it becomes such a negative and frustration for them that that's one of the reasons that their business suffers, because they have that kind of subconscious resentment that their business doesn't pay them. So right from day one, we want to plan to pay you. Now, that doesn't mean that we might not go through a period where we don't, because it's a way for us to greatly mitigate expense and grow faster. But at this stage, I want you to plan to be paying yourself. And truthfully, I want you to be paying yourself as soon as possible. So here we've got 7 hours each day. Okay, and 3 hours on Saturday, so that's 38 hours a week for training. Now, chances are you are probably going to have to find some time to sell in there. So maybe you outsource all the training and you hire trainers for 38 hours a week. How many of these hours are you going to sell? I mean, I always found 4 to 7 p.m. again the best hours to sell. So maybe we just simply commit to that on average, or better yet, maybe it's those 3 hours plus one additional for the follow-up work and stuff that a salesperson needs to do each day. Now, salespeople, we can talk about this in another video. I compensate them a little bit differently, but for the sake of argument, for today's example, this will be good enough. So we've got another 20 hours a week there for sales. Now, do you think that you'll need cleaning staff, right? Will you guys handle the cleaning, and will extra hours be required for that? Will you need an administration person, somebody that functions as customer service to take care of and respond to customers and handle billing situations and so on and so forth? Whether it's cleaning, admin, or whatever, I suspect you probably will. So let's, for the sake of argument, call that an extra 3, could be more hours per day. In fact, actually, let's be more pessimistic and let's call this at least 4 hours per day, right? So we have another 20 hours a week there that will be required. So we have, as a starting place, an average of 78 hours a week that we'll be using for payroll. Just grab my phone here. So I've got a calculator, and let's kind of figure this out. So the question is what is a typical wage in your area, and what will these people get paid? I find universally, like trainers, typically on the low side could be 20, on the high side could be $35 an hour is probably the universal average. So we could use something in the middle as a starting place of around 25. So, and then this staff, the salesperson and the admin person can be really all over the map. So what we might do, minimum wage for us is around $15 an hour. So let's assume that the salesperson, a little bit higher profile person, maybe they get commissions, etc. So let's even offer to pay them the same as trainers, which will probably be a decent wage for many. And let's assume that this person is like a minimum wage person, which for me is around 15. So let's figure out what our average wage would be for all of those people. So we have 65 divided by 3, or an average wage of $21.66, which I would times by 78, which is $16.90 per week, times 52 and divide by 12 means my average payroll per month is going to be somewhere around $7,300. So hopefully that makes sense. If that doesn't make sense, stop the video, go back, kind of go through that again. But you can see all we've done is use some estimates based on typical hours to create a mock schedule to figure out what payroll is going to be. All right, so it doesn't need to be exact, but we have now a number to work with. So far, between expenses and payroll, we know that it's going to cost us roughly $12,550 to run our 3,000 square foot fitness facility. Now, many of you could be thinking that that's kind of high, and it might be, which is perfect in my opinion, because if we're pessimistic here and we can plan for this eventual outcome, we have a better chance of success. So now let's talk about the next couple of things, which are going to be how much are we going to charge and how many customers do we need, and then we'll work into where we're going to get those customers from. So let me stop the camera for just a sec, set up for that, and we'll talk about how much we charge. Okay, as we continue this journey about opening our gym studio, we're kind of planning out those monthly expenses, right? What would this place look like if it was open tomorrow, and how much would it cost us? So the next thing, we've kind of covered expenses and payroll now, and I've just added marketing before we get into this kind of next section. So what will you be spending on marketing each month? And my rule of thumb is, like, I always tell my clients a good starting place is to be always comfortable spending 8 to 10% of your total revenue back on your ad spend. The most successful locations spend more than that, and these are things that we'll kind of tailor to individuals within our coaching program and how their performance is and a million other factors. But it kind of gives you a number today. So our fictional facility here, $12,500 per month. If we use that 10%, which means an average marketing budget of around $1,200 per month. So if we kind of all in here, that puts us around $13,750, I think, is what we're talking about per month to run our business, pay everyone, assuming it was open tomorrow with a bunch of members and we were kind of a few months into our journey. So let's talk about why that's important, because now we can reverse engineer a few more things. And first off, what will our membership price be? Okay, so you need to ask yourself, like, what will my service look like? Are you a boot camp or group exercise facility that will sell classes based on X number of times per week all the way to unlimited? Are you personal training where people will train on specific memberships? Are you small group personal training that might be like some of the type 9 round type businesses today, where people come in and don't necessarily work out as a group or any time, but they can just come in and use the gym at different times, so we have a direct membership base and so on. That's one of the first decisions you have to decide. What will my service look like? And then we're back to this guessing game of, what do I want to charge for my service, or what do I think is realistic? So you might want to look around and visit some locations in your area and kind of see, like, what are membership rates. Now, you don't have to put a lot of stock in what your future competitors are doing. It's just, it gives you a point of reference in terms of what might be happening in your market space. So what's a good price for you? It depends. So let's use group training, because I think the majority of people these days are using group training. I think I've seen it all over the map, ranging from as low as $99 per month all the way up to like $399 per month in different markets could be for the membership price. So what should you charge? Well, you can ultimately decide, but for starting place, we're just going to commit to a guess. So for our example, let's use a kind of an average price point I see of around $149 per month. Okay, now we can kind of fill in the next question. Assuming that this number is right, which, guys, if you want to truly plan even worst case scenario and be even more pessimistic and set yourself up to be even greater chance of success, we can even add a contingency to this, right? So we could add another 15% to our expenses to make it even a worst case scenario, which will help us plan to be successful even more, knowing that we could sustain this. So we could, where's my calculator? If I add another 15% to 13,750 real quick. Okay, so now our cost to run our facility is $15,812 per month. How do you like me so far? I just give you worse and worse news. But you'll see why this is important. So if we're charging $149 per month and it actually costs $15,812 to run our facility, we can now divide this amount by the cost per month, and it tells us exactly how many members we need to break even. So this facility needs 106 members to break even, right? And that is actually a very realistic number, especially for a facility 3,000 square feet. 3,000 square feet set up right, easily support a membership base of 5, maybe even 600 members. So you think if you only need 106 to break even, imagine how successful we could be if we had, say, 250, half of what I think is possible. So let's just do the math on that just to show you how exciting this does get. So we go 250 times 149, we haven't even changed our price, that becomes $37,250 a month in revenue. Yes, our payroll expenses and a number of other things would go up, but I think you get the point I'm trying to make here, is that very realistic numbers can make this facility very, very profitable. So now we have a couple of important things established. We know that our price point could be $149 per month. You can do other calculations and decide for yourself. We also know that we need 106 people to break even. The next question is, how do we get these 106 people? Okay, so let me just stop the camera for a sec, clear my board, and we'll talk about this as well. All right, we left talking about the number of members that we need to break even and how to achieve that target as quickly as possible. So target 106. So we need 106 members, and here's where we get to be pessimistic again. Always plan for worst case scenario. Let's say that only 1 out of 10 people that expresses interest in your business actually signs up. So now we need 1,060 leads. How are we going to get 1,060 leads? Okay, and this is where this starts to get really relevant to the stage that you're at, right? Because when we negotiate a lease, when we get possession of our building, when construction or renovations are happening, we can already be doing what we need to do to establish and get these leads in order to get those 106 members as soon as possible. Wouldn't it be great if as soon as you opened your doors, you were at break even or maybe even in profit potential? Well, especially when we negotiate our lease and think about free rent and reducing payroll because we won't need all the staff right away, you can see how realistic this becomes to be opening your doors and be instantly break even and even possibly profitable. So now we can work backwards and think about how do we get these 1,060 leads. Well, if you watched my other videos, I have one called the 5x25 marketing model. And if you haven't watched it now, I'll add a card so you can easily click on it and go to it. But I would definitely recommend it, okay? And it just talks about how we can get leads from 5 different sources. So let's lay out what some of those sources that I like to use are. Groupon, as an example. Okay, and your email list. So if you haven't started building an email list yet, that'd be a great thing for, in fact, I'm pretty sure I have a video on that as well that will explain to you how to start or build your email list. That's something that we can also help you with. We've got the big dog, of course, which would be things like Facebook, Instagram, and all other social platforms. I'll just leave it at Facebook. And then we've also got offline. We got referrals, if you have any current clients presently or as you get them, how you can sign up more referrals. We have 6-week challenges, which isn't necessarily a different medium, but it becomes such an animal on its own that it can transcend our other offers. I think you get my point, is that we've just effectively divided this 1,060 into 200 different leads from each of these. Okay, so we can continue to work backwards, right? And 200 referrals might be a lot, so let's even leave that out and just consider these 4 for a moment. So we'll make that 250 from each one. Okay, we need 250 leads from each of these. Okay. So how can we work backwards and start to figure this out? Well, Groupon, honestly, pretty easy. Get a hold of them, implement a couple of offers. We find, I may even have a video on this already somewhere. If not, I'll certainly cover it one day. But Groupon, very realistic to sell 80 vouchers a month, and about 35% of those typically activate. So it is very realistic, and then especially with a grand opening offer, very, very easy to get 250 leads from Groupon. Like, they will support you with a grand opening typically, flood it and put a lot of emphasis on it, and the right offer could easily generate the 250 leads. Okay, so Groupon is one of the ones I like to start with because they do the work for us. We go to work to get the offer set up, but after that, they do the work for you. Your email list. What if you, so email list, what does it take to get 250 people from your email list? Well, we probably times it by the 10 rule again. We need about 2,500 people on our email list, maybe even as much as 5,000 people on our email list to get 250 possible leads. So the question is, first off, do we have this many people on our list? If not, how can we start growing our email list? Well, we can use basic offers like one of our favorite ones to do is at-home workouts, right? That people can opt in and exchange their email to get these workouts that can be advertised on things like Facebook and become a really great thing in your offline marketing, which we'll talk about here in just a little bit later. But even the chance to win a membership or sign up for a pre-trial even before your facility is open, there's lots of ways that you can generate more emails. And these people typically know, like, and trust you better than most, because if you've been doing your email marketing effectively, which I certainly have a video on that I can link as well in the cards. Okay, so I'll make a note of that for you as well. So email marketing. Okay, we can grow your email list and start giving them an offer. You know, we love to do, I've had tons of success with a simple 1-month opening trial, and I just find consumer rationale is this. When a new facility is opening, nobody wants to get ripped off, but people are usually cool to spend under $100 to buy a trial to try the new, latest, greatest thing. Great offer to your email list, right? Facebook marketing, there's so many videos on Facebook marketing on my channel and many other channels using your offers here today. Man, it would be easy for a new facility to get double this number of leads from Facebook in 30 days or less, probably. The question is how much will it cost, right? Which goes back to our marketing budget and thinking about what we need for our opening budget, which we're going to get to in next week's video. We'll talk about actual build-out costs and how much money you need to get started, right? But a good rule of thumb for Facebook is plan around $10 a lead. You can probably do it way less than that, but again, if we plan worst case scenario, we know. So again, we're going to need about $2,500 to spend on Facebook potentially to get those 250 leads there. Offline was one of my favorite. This is how I built all my businesses, right? Is I would do guest speaking engagements, anybody that could put me in front of 10 people or more, you know, whether that was at a local business, a charitable organization. Some of my favorites being things like the Rotary, the Kinsmen, and so on, getting in front of groups of people and teaching them about fitness. It was so easy to generate potential customers, and that's where that at-home workouts and stuff comes in, right? I would speak to people, I'd leave a clipboard at the back of the room, and my goal would be to make sure that I left with at least 60% of people's emails knowing that they would take my stuff, end up on my email list, which greatly contributed to the 250 people. So trade shows, you know, again, if you had in your opening budget, we can talk about that again next week. Maybe we got $2,000 or $3,000 for booth space at upcoming bridal shows. We've been to a bridal show and gotten as much as almost 2,000 leads at a bridal show. 2,000 leads very realistically activate 200 to 250 people to come in for a trial. So all I want to show you here is that if you're willing to hustle and do the work, it's really not that hard to get that 1,060 leads you need that could potentially lead you to 106 or more customers the day you open and have a business that's break even, if not profitable. It will be profitable because your expenses will be lower. We haven't even talked about negotiating the lease yet. So you see the power of this. Watch this video a couple of times. Wrap your head around these numbers. All we're focused on right now is figuring out what would be the expenses to operate this business long term. In future video, because this one's already getting a little bit long, I'm going to cover, and actually I will cover it in a video, but I'm just going to give you the resource. So I have kind of a model business plan you can follow and a template that helps you create financial projections. So I'll put a link below that shows you where you can get the resources for your business plan. But we just took the most difficult piece of that and showed you how to map it out to create your financial projections. Not only will this get you excited to show you how you'll be able to run your business long term, but you'll also, if you need to acquire any kind of financing, the first thing they're going to want to see is your business plan and projections. So this video got a little bit all over the place. It was kind of fun to think through this in front of the whiteboard, and hopefully you guys have been able to follow my mad science attitude. If you got questions, this would be a great video to post your question in the comments below. I'd love to answer them and help you out. But this, I'm telling you, is such a key step if you're serious about opening a fitness studio. Oh, and by the way, don't forget to subscribe.